Hey everybody, it's Gabriel. We are live from Imagine. I'm here with my main man, Micah, and we've got a little sit down with my good friend, Marisa Kokenawa from Cognizant. Marisa, how are you?
I'm fabulous, and thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you. Not only are you here to do chop it up with us a little bit, but you guys are also a platinum sponsor, so thank you very much.
Of course, we're happy to sponsor. We're happy to be here. Been very proud sponsors of Automation Anywhere for, I think, pretty much from the beginning.
Yeah, I think you have. You guys,
Day ones.
Yeah, they're day ones.
Yes.
They're day ones. You guys have been a tremendous partner. It's amazing to see. Last year we were in New York.
Yep.
Started to get an uptick in the attendance. It was a little more intimate, but it was fabulous just to have everyone back in the place again. Now we're here in Austin, double the attendance, double the energy is. I thought last year the energy was great. Holy cow, with all the new announcements, with all the new things. Tell me a little bit about how it feels to be back, at an event like this. I'm sure you have multiple events you've been at already, but.
We do, but this one feels really good. There's a lot of energy. I love the movement. Also, the way this is set up, there's floors, you can interact with people. There's demos, there's master classes. We had our clients speak this morning. So this has really been phenomenal. Just also get back in person. I know we've been doing it for the last year, but this feels like we're getting back into a normal flow of meeting people, getting together. I think we were still dabbling in the last year because it was, post-COVID. So I agree, the energy has been phenomenal at this event.
I would say that a big trend of this Imagine is moving customers from start to accelerate or accelerate to scale. And part of that means thinking about the people and the roles that empower your automation program, right?
The theme of this year's Imagine, humans to the power of AI, but we've always been about making work human, freeing humans from, the tedious and the mundane. With Micah and the Pathfinder program and the company and the way the platform's built, we are empowering companies at 3 different phases, whether it's starting, accelerating, or scaling.
Yep.
But when it comes to the people and how you need to position them or build the teams for those different phases, how do you approach that? How are you at Cognizant when you're talking to your various clients in those different phases?
Yeah.
What are some of the keys to the makeup of those teams?
Yeah, it's funny. I think there's a lot of focus always on the technology first, right? You have to get it implemented, you start building, you get your POCs. But what we really see to move past that initial stage to be able to accelerate and then ultimately reach scale, and I would even say sustain, right? It's how we actually are working now is using automation and these tools and technologies as part of our day job. We have to think about the people element. How do you bring them along this journey? And most start with awareness sessions, raising that digital IQ of the organization. And I think that is a great place to start. But then you do need to start moving past it and think about people's jobs are now impacted by this technology in their organization. So it may be employees have to work alongside digital workers. They may have to be helping build, maybe not building, maybe they're just helping funnel ideas, much like Lean Six Sigma is, right? Not everyone's a master black belt, but most are aware they can do continuous improvement. Everyone can be a part of this automation journey. And I'd even move as far as technology embedding journey that we're doing into how people are going to work in the future. And then I think the next piece is going to be, now how do managers have to think about this? How does HR have to think about hiring differently? How do we do learning differently? Because now not just doing an InfoSec training every year, compliance training, maybe we also have to add some technology training into the mix so that we're continually evolving to meet also with how this entire industry is evolving.
I like that. For a lot of automation programs that are just getting started, they usually start quite small, right? It's maybe an automation lead or an IT leader and a couple people who are doing some development. Talk to me about how Cognizant has been able to coach customers through growing and scaling through that. Because as people start, it's like everyone's wearing multiple hats and everyone's doing multiple things. But as organizations start to grow their automation practice, it starts to see that people are moving into specializations. So how does Cognizant complement that, and how are you coaching people through that?
So we help them through that journey, right? So it does typically start with a COE team or a lead for the program. We help them think about how do you start expanding out into the business? How do you bring your IT technology teams and business together? And then how do you start to elevate it as well? Because you also need to get senior leaders bought in. They need to understand the benefit. And this isn't an initiative. I do think sometimes that is the focus. To me, this is how do you use this as a lever to achieve your strategic initiatives? Because that's really the power of what this technology can do. So we help them along that journey, whether it's creating the strategy, strategy, helping to have that executive conversation. Also then getting into the leaders, how do you incorporate this into your role? How do you make that blend? We even have built training programs for them, multi-tiered too. So things like in their LMS programs, to how do you do the technical training for employees, how do you do basic awareness, and having that ability to tier is how it starts ingraining into the organization itself and how it begins to integrate. And also importantly, it's not just about, we all started with the RPA space, but this has truly evolved into intelligent hyper-automation, right? And we need to think about Gen AI also, and how does that impact, how do we incorporate to be able to drive those outcomes for the organization. And so we think about how do you integrate across all those layers, into rethinking the process, how do you integrate across the technologies, and very then importantly, like we're talking about here, how do you help people along this journey? Because we're not all native to these tools and tech. Not everyone's going to embrace it the same way, so you have to think about the medium in which you're going to deliver, and then help each of those different personalities, personas, to be able to learn, evolve, and then ultimately sustain in your organization.
I love that. So it's all about upskilling. As a part of Imagine, we're actually launching Pathfinder Academy, which is new training for automation leads, for developers, for citizen developers. So I'm really excited about people being able to experience that kind of stuff and get hands-on with our software in a new way. One other thing you mentioned that I want to hit on is this idea of promotion and engagement is something that we talk about with the Pathfinder program. And it's not something that really, I'll be honest, comes natural for a lot of IT leaders.
Yeah.
If I was leading an IT program, it's one thing for me to do that. It's another thing for me to be a self-promoter or a marketer.
Yeah.
Why are you looking at me when you say that?
Well, I'm wearing socks that have my own face on them, so.
That is true.
Yeah.
You are.
So I want to hear your perspective on how you're coaching different automation leaders, because it is kind of a skill.
It is. Even if you're in the business, not everyone's out there, doing promotional awareness training, coffee chats, hackathons. I mean, there's a whole element here of engagement that is different than traditional technology deployments. I actually think that's why, honestly, some of the industry struggled for the first few years, because it is an element of having to bring process together in a way that you maybe never did before, that type of work. This is having to spend time with the people. I mean, there's even an element of, when we think of change management, which is really what this starts touching on, you do have to spend time with people. You have to take that time to actually explain things. Like, even if we put the trainings out there and they're self-paced, there's something to be said of also making time to sit down and explain and answer questions on where are we going, how we hope this will work, what are they seeing as a challenge, because it might make you better.
Yeah.
It's another big piece. And I think it's about, helping people build these new muscles of engagement. We've done some really cool things also around creating what we call a community of practice, because we find that also automation teams only have so much bandwidth to be able to go out and do all of this, right? And maybe not everyone's so comfortable with it either. So it's how do you also engage the community to self-learn, self-teach, answer questions, maybe create a little bit of healthy competition, right? A little gamification, if you can add in too, is always nice. And what we've seen is that when you do that, you start to get it's not an initiative, it's not just a metric, you start to feel it. And if you feel it, that's different. That's a tipping point in an organization where you're starting to create a real change and a positive one.
Yeah, a little bit of that FOMO too, right? Get people excited about what am I missing out on because I don't have this capability.
I would want that. I'm like, wait a minute, you can do that? I want that.
Oh yeah, we've done some creative things with clients too, on just prizes they could give out, rotating awards, like special designed things also. Because
like
people
custom stuff.
Yeah, it's really exciting for them because it's making people engage. They want to be a part of it. It's a cool thing to put on their desk if they're in the office, or even if they're not in the office, we ship it to them. So on your Zoom call or Teams call, it's sitting there, proudly displayed.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of fun stuff like that. And also, look, we all spend a lot of time at work, right? And we know we're going to have to do our job. But if you can make things more fun, engaging, and make people want to do more because it just feels good.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't that also make all of us feel better too?
And that's why we're here, right? So you can do that. So you talked about those are amazing concepts, amazing ideas, things that customers are using to help amplify the success, the possibilities, create that awareness of the programs, right? We also have a segment of our show here called Keep It Real.
Okay.
Yeah. We're keeping it real now, okay? So those are some examples of successes. what are the things, where do people fail? What are the things you've tried even that just didn't work? And you're like, we gave it a shot, didn't work. Like, what are those? I want to hear that. Give me the dirt.
I mean, there's a lot of things that I would say I've seen go wrong in these programs. I actually ran an automation program myself before I came into Cognizant. So I was in the early days, so I have all the scars too from those learning curve. I think, I don't think there's long enough time in this segment for all those life lessons we've had along the way. I think a couple of things. One is when you're setting your program up, like everyone's like, is it a COE? Is it federated? Is it hybrid? Is it, I don't know, pick a term for it. Look, they all could work. It's what works best for your organization. There is no checklist to make an automation program successful. If it was, we'd all be doing it. It would be really easy, and I'd probably be in a different role at this point because we've been at this for like a decade. You had your Gen AI Mai Tai last night, actually. It was very creative. But yeah, I would say that's one, is that there is no checklist to all of this. You have to think about what's going to work in your organization. Everyone has to document, but that doesn't mean you have to document in the same way. You don't have to use a Word document. You might have an online portal you use.
Yeah.
You have to think about what is going to work for your organization. How are people going to want to use this? What's going to be most natural and easy? Because that's what this is supposed to be, right? So I think that's one. When it comes to ideation, top down alone doesn't work, bottoms up alone doesn't work. It takes both. You need the top down because you're going to find big connected solutions. That's where you're going to get the bigger benefit in ROI. But you need the grassroots because that's your buy-in. That's also making things better, easier for your organization, which, by the way, if you make things better, you get better quality, you get faster, and guess what? You will get ROI too. It's just going to take a bit more time. But when you go for the big swing initiatives, people are going to want to work with you more because you also help think about them along this journey. I think the other thing is think about the technology suite that you have, because look, you have to think about how to integrate. There's a lot of tools and techs out there to be able to think end-to-end process automation, and you want to think, how do you complement? How do you think about those joint solutions? How do you think about building in a way that reuses, and so that it makes it easier to support and maintain in the long run? Because most focus on get something built, get it out there, but you want this to run and in a way that doesn't break down, that isn't brittle. And so you have to think about the governance piece, the maintenance piece. How do you continue to harden and improve? And I think one of the things too that you guys are doing is really nice when you're talking about like Pathfinder and also even some of the ways to monitor how the program is running, is that continuous improvement element. If you don't make the program better over time, obviously it's a business process, it evolves, and we want things to get better, faster, so that people don't say, hey, my bot failed, or my document didn't intake correctly, or my dashboard wasn't refreshed on time. All of that's frustrating for your end user. So you have to think of how does it come together? How do you make it as seamless as possible for your users? And then on the back end, we're all running a business. We can't forget that just because we're excited about something. So you have to keep the eye on, how do I keep using this to drive results and outcomes back into the organization?
And yesterday we were doing some stuff and we were talking about that, right? Reusability, the resilience,
supportability, maintainability, sustainability, all of those things, all of those abilities.
All the abilities.
Yeah.
Which is awesome, because to your point, like, again, sort of almost going to the silo mentality, it can be sort of at a micro level too, where you're like, I'm going to build this solution. It doesn't scale with if I change a platform, or if I'm on ServiceNow or I'm on whatever. Yeah. And then they upgrade, all of a sudden it breaks. Well, now we're stuck, right? So those are like key considerations to do. But
I agree.
We can go so much further, and I hope we get the chance to do so. But thank you so much again for joining us. It's always a pleasure.